Don't you ever wish you could just fast forward on some of those goals?
Mhm.
Like skip the hard work and just boom, results.
Yeah, totally. It's so tempting to go for those big, dramatic changes.
Right. But what if we've got it all wrong? What if the real secret is in those tiny little changes we make?
That's what we're getting into today, right?
Absolutely. We're diving into James Clear's Atomic Habits to uncover how those small shifts can lead to some pretty remarkable outcomes. I'm ready to ditch the whole go big or go home thing if it actually works. Yeah, I'm all about that practical stuff.
Well, you've sent over some excerpts from Atomic Habits, so let's unpack it. I think what's really cool about Clear's approach is that it's not just some theory in a book. It's personal. He doesn't just talk the talk, he's lived it.
Oh, see, now I love a good comeback story. What happened? Lay it on me.
Okay, so picture this. Clear's this high school athlete at the top of his game.
Okay, crushing it.
Totally. Then bam, freak accident on the baseball field. Yeah, serious stuff. Broken nose, facial fractures, even a dislocated eye. It was a life-altering event, something that could have completely derailed his athletic career.
Wow, I mean, most people would totally understand if he'd just been like, all right, I'm done.
Absolutely. But instead of letting it break him, Clear used it as fuel.
Really?
Yeah, he decided to rebuild his strength, his life, everything, through these small, consistent changes he calls atomic habits.
So not those crazy overnight transformations. It's about the small stuff, those little adjustments we make every day, those atomic habits that add up over time.
Exactly. And get this concept of like compounding is key. Think of it like compound interest, right?
Okay, yeah.
A small percentage gain each day might not seem like much at first, but over a year, boom, exponential growth.
That's kind of blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
I am definitely guilty of that all or nothing mentality. So what kind of results are we talking about here? Like if you actually aim for just a 1% improvement every single day.
1%. Okay, so if you can stick with that, just that tiny 1% improvement every single day, by the end of the year, you're looking at a nearly 38% increase overall.
38%.
From 1%.
Yeah. And it goes both ways, though. Those little bad habits, the ones that don't seem like a big deal, they compound, too. Like, imagine skipping just a few minutes of exercise a day or scrolling on your phone instead of reading.
Yeah, that's scary to think about.
It really adds up. But that's the thing. It's not about any single action. It's about the cumulative effect of all those choices over time.
Okay, this is already making me rethink things. It feels so much less overwhelming than thinking I need to overhaul my entire life.
Yeah.
This idea that I can just make these small changes and keep at it. It just feels way more doable.
Totally. And that's the beauty of it. It shifts your focus from waiting for motivation to hit you like a lightning bolt to just showing up consistently and making those small choices that line up with the person you want to be.
Building the life you want, one tiny brick at a time. I love it. But how do we actually make this happen? How do we take those big goals and break them down into those atomic steps?
So tiny changes, right? It's easy to talk about. But how do we actually rewire our brains to actually embrace them? You mentioned that Clear dives into the science behind how habits form, and I am here for it. Give me all the geeky details.
Well, he has this framework. It's really simple but super powerful called the habit loop. Basically, it's this 4-stage cycle that our brains go through with every single habit.
Every single one.
Yeah, everything from brushing your teeth to like training for a marathon. And the cool part is once you understand these stages, it's like you've got a roadmap for change.
Okay, I love a good roadmap. Break it down for me. What are the 4 stages?
Okay, so we've got cue, craving, response, and reward.
Got it. Cue, craving, response, reward.
You got it. And it kind of works like this.
Mm.
The cue is like a trigger, right?
Yeah.
It sets the whole cycle in motion. It's your brain going, hold on, a reward might be coming. Interesting. So it's not even about the actual action itself. It's about what that action represents to our brains. I like it.
Right, and that craving, that's stage 2, that leads to the response, which is the actual habit, the thing you do, and finally the reward. That's the payoff, that good feeling that makes you want to do it all over again.
Makes sense. So let's make this real. Give me an example. Let's say I'm trying to eat healthier. How would this habit loop play out?
Okay, so picture this. You walk into your kitchen and you see this beautiful bowl of fresh fruit on the counter. That, my friend, is your cue.
Okay, I'm seeing it.
Right, now your brain's thinking, ooh, fruit, that's refreshing, or maybe I'll have so much energy after eating that. That's the craving kicking in.
And then I eat the fruit. That's the response.
Exactly. And the reward, the sweetness of the fruit, how good it makes you feel knowing you're taking care of yourself, bam. Habit loop in action.
Wow, that makes so many of our behaviors seem so automatic. We're just running these habit loops all day long without even realizing it. But if we can figure out our cues and cravings, maybe we can start tweaking the system, interrupt those not-so-great habits and swap in some healthier choices.
100%. And that's the beauty of understanding this whole habit loop thing. When you're aware of it, you can intervene. Make those good habit cues super obvious, make them tempting, and those bad habit cues, make them invisible.
I love it. Okay, but how about a real-world example, like
Yeah.
procrastination? It's my nemesis. How do I even start tackling that beast with the habit loop? Procrastination? Ugh, the struggle is real. So if we're using this habit loop thing, what's the cue? Is it just the task itself, like stare me down?
It can be, but a lot of times it's the feeling you get when you think about the task. Like, say you've got this big, hairy project due.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Right. So the cue might be that feeling of, oh, crap, this is huge, or I'll never get this all done. That pops up when you even think about getting started.
Okay, yeah, that feeling. So then the craving is to avoid that feeling at all costs.
You got it. And the response. Procrastination City. You check social media, organize your sock drawer, anything but that thing you need to do.
And then the reward is that sweet, sweet relief from the anxiety, even if it's just temporary. But that just makes me want to procrastinate even more the next time. It's like a vicious cycle.
Totally. But the good news is, once you see the pattern, you can start to change it. One thing Clear talks about is temptation bundling. It's basically pairing something you want to do with something you need to do.
Ooh, I like that. So I could be like, okay, self, you can only listen to your favorite podcast while you're tackling that project.
Exactly. Or only let yourself watch that show you love after you've finished a certain amount of work. You're basically tricking your brain into craving the productive activity by linking it to something enjoyable.
It's like sneaking in those veggies by covering them in cheese. So smart. This is reminding me of another thing. Clear talks about making good habits immediately satisfying.
Yeah, because our brains are wired for that instant gratification, right? If we can find a way to make those positive actions feel good right away, even if the big reward comes later, we're much more likely to stick with them.
Totally. Willpower can only take us so far. Okay, so we've got temptation bundling for making those habits more appealing. What else?
This one's simple but surprisingly powerful. Visual tracking. Use a habit tracker, mark off days on a calendar, whatever works for you.
I am all about the visual tracking. There's something so satisfying about seeing those check marks add up. It's like a visual reminder that I'm making progress, even if it's just one tiny step at a time.
Totally. It's like a little dopamine hit every time you get to fill in that box. Plus, it keeps you accountable.
This whole conversation has been a game changer. I think we often overcomplicate this whole habit change thing, But Clear's approach, it's all about breaking things down and working with our brains, not against them.
For sure. And once you've got those basic habits down, Clear takes it a step further. He's all about striving for mastery, really excelling in the things that matter to us. And guess what? He says it's not about some innate talent or anything.
Oh, tell me more.
He says it's about consistency and effort over time. It's about embracing the process and pushing yourself to constantly improve.
I love that. So it's not just about forming the habit. It's about falling in love with the process of getting better and better. It's like those athletes who are always training, pushing their limits, even when no one's watching, they find joy in the challenge.
Exactly. And you know what helps with that? Finding that sweet spot of challenge, what Clear calls the Goldilocks rule. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me about this Goldilocks rule.
So basically, we're most engaged when we're working on things that are just a smidge outside of our comfort zone. Too easy, we get bored. Too hard, we get discouraged and give up. But find that sweet spot. It's like magic. We hit that flow state, we make progress, and we're motivated to keep going.
So it's about finding that balance, that edge, and always pushing ourselves just a little bit further. I'm so in.
That's the spirit. And that's how we grow.
Wow, this has been an awesome deep dive into atomic habits. We've covered so much ground.
Seriously. From the science of those habit loops to practical tips for making change stick, and even how to strive for mastery.
It's amazing how much power we have to shape our lives one tiny action at a time. And that's what I want you to take away from this deep dive. It doesn't have to be a huge, overwhelming thing. What's one small habit you can commit to today? One little change that could make a difference in your life. Remember, even the tiniest actions, when done consistently, can lead to extraordinary results. So get out there and start building those atomic habits.